Have you ever felt the warmth in a relationship slowly grow cold? Not with shouting or slamming doors, but with silence? At Elder Health Essentials, we explore emotional well-being just as much as physical health, because our hearts need care too. So here's a question. What's the first thing someone does when they stop loving you? It's not always about dramatic exits or demands for space. In fact, the shift is often so quiet, so subtle, that if you're not paying close attention, it can slip right past you. You might still hear the same words, follow the same routines, and even share the same meals, but deep down, something has changed. That warmth, that spark, that curiosity fades. This video isn't about playing guessing games or pointing fingers. It's about clarity. Because when love starts to drift away, it leaves behind small emotional footprints, patterns we often overlook. One of the most telling signs is the loss of curiosity. Have you noticed how someone who once asked about your doctor's appointment, your garden, or how you slept last night now barely lifts their eyes when you speak? They used to lean into your stories. Now they seem distant, distracted, disconnected. Think about Edna and Paul, who were married for nearly 40 years. Edna once shared everything with Paul. Stories about her blooming roses, neighborhood happenings, or drama from her book club. And Paul? He used to listen, laugh, respond. But slowly, without warning, that changed. One day, Edna was speaking and realized he wasn't really listening anymore. No anger, just emptiness. No follow-up questions, no interest. That's not just distraction. It's emotional detachment. When someone loves you, they want to stay connected to your world, even in the smallest, most ordinary ways. When that fades, the silence becomes louder than words. And no, it's not because you're boring or your stories have changed. It's because their emotional investment has. You begin to feel like background noise instead of a central character in their life. Have you ever felt that way? Like your words don't quite land anymore? That's the first quiet knock of fading love. And then comes another. A decrease in patience. What they once laughed off now seems to irritate them. A repeated story or simple question might earn a sigh or a cold look, and suddenly you're second-guessing your every word. Imagine Helen, 76, who was always a little forgetful. Her husband, Richard, used to tease her gently, affectionately. But now, the same forgetfulness that once made him chuckle now seems to make him snap. So ask yourself, when did the patience start to fade? When did understanding turn into frustration? Love doesn't always exit with a bang. Sometimes it tiptoes out the door while everything else still looks the same. But your heart knows. And here at Elder Health Essentials, we believe you deserve honesty. Not just from others, but from yourself too. Stay with us, because as we explore more signs, you may uncover the quiet truth that brings clarity and empowers your next step. Have you ever noticed how a single moment, quiet and unassuming, can speak louder than any argument? At Elder Health Essentials, we explore not just physical health, but emotional clarity as well, especially in long-term relationships. Helen will never forget the day she asked Richard for help logging into her online banking, and he simply replied, "You need to figure it out yourself." It wasn't the harshest thing he'd ever said, but it was different. Different from the man who once lovingly searched for her glasses, who reminded her, for the 5th time, where she had left her phone. That shift, so subtle yet so powerful, can be one of the clearest signs that something has changed. You see, when someone truly loves you, they offer grace. They move through your quirks and forgetfulness with patience. But when that love begins to fade, Even the smallest requests can start to feel like burdens to them. It's not about what you've done wrong. It's about the emotional distance they're creating. Have you ever started to question yourself, wondering, am I asking too much? That doubt often creeps in when someone no longer shows up for you with the same willingness or warmth. You can feel it in the sigh before they answer, in the way they interrupt, in the rolling eyes or the heavy silence after a perfectly normal question. These aren't just signs of a bad day. They may be signs of a heart quietly checking out. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. Has the tone of your relationship changed? Are you starting to feel like a burden rather than a beloved? If so, you deserve to recognize that shift, because ignoring it won't make it disappear. And if you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, let us know by commenting number 2 below. Your support helps Elder Health Essentials continue creating heartfelt content that speaks to your experiences and helps you navigate them with wisdom and grace. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we invite you to do so and turn on the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Let's now consider another subtle yet powerful sign. Time. Not just hours or minutes, but meaningful, shared time. When love begins to fade, the time you used to spend together starts to vanish. Not because they're too busy, but because they no longer choose to spend it with you. Maybe they stop watching your favorite shows with you, or skip the quiet evening porch chats. Maybe they linger longer in other rooms, or leave the house without asking if you'd like to join. Think of Rai, 68, who once cherished his morning coffee routine with his wife Linda. For years, they sat side by side at the kitchen table, chatting, sipping, even sitting in comfortable silence. But then, little by little, Linda started waking earlier and going for long walks alone. The coffee was made, but the seat beside Rai remained empty. She said she needed time for herself, and he understood, until sometimes became every day. Suddenly, he felt like a guest in his own marriage. Because here's the truth, when someone loves you, they make time. Not just out of obligation, but out of desire. Time is one of the deepest expressions of love. And when love begins to leave, that time, those shared moments, often vanish with it, without any clear explanation. Have you felt that kind of slow fading? If so, you're not alone, and your feelings matter. He used to help her find her glasses without hesitation, or gently remind her for the 5th time where she had left her phone. It wasn't a burden. It was part of their rhythm, a dance built on familiarity and patience. But then, something shifted. It wasn't abrupt or loud. It was quiet, subtle, but undeniable. Richard started snapping. His patience, once soft and steady, grew sharp. He muttered under his breath. He rolled his eyes. One day, when Helen asked for help logging into her online banking, he simply said, "You need to figure it out yourself." That sentence lodged itself in her memory, not because it was dramatic, but because it was so unlike him. When someone loves you, truly loves you, they extend grace. They know your habits and quirks, and they move around them with care. But when love starts to slip away, even the smallest requests begin to feel like obligations. That shift is powerful, even when it's wrapped in quiet moments. Understanding turns into resistance, and it's not always about something you did. It's about how they're pulling away, piece by piece. You might begin to question yourself. Am I being too needy? Am I asking too much? But the truth is, it's not about needing less. It's about how the other person shows up for you changing. Their emotional investment starts to fade, and it shows in their voice, in the way they interrupt you, in the eye rolls you weren't supposed to see. Even in the silence after a perfectly normal question, don't dismiss that change. It's not just stress or a bad mood. It may be a sign that their heart is no longer in the same place it once was. And if you find yourself constantly feeling like a burden instead of a partner, that's not something to overlook. That's something to acknowledge. If this message is resonating with you right now, leave a comment with the number 2 to let us know you're still with us. And if you haven't yet subscribed, now's the perfect time. Hit that bell so you won't miss videos that support, inform, and uplift you. Let's keep going. Sign 3. Lack of time together. When love begins to fade, time begins to vanish. Not hours or days on a clock, but shared, meaningful time. The kind that feels intentional. You'll notice they stop making plans. Not because they're busy, but because they simply don't want to. They no longer sit next to you during your favorite shows. They stop joining you on the porch at sunset. Instead, they linger in other rooms. Or they leave the house without asking if you'd like to come along. And even when they stay, it feels like only their body is there. Their mind and heart are elsewhere. Think of Rai, 68 years old. For years, he and his wife Linda had a morning ritual, coffee together at the kitchen table. Sometimes they talked about the news or the weather. Sometimes they just sat in silence. It didn't matter. It was about being together. But over time, that changed. Linda started waking earlier, heading out for long walks alone. The coffee would be brewed, but the table was empty. She said she needed space. Rai understood at first, but when those mornings alone became the norm, he began to feel like a guest in his own relationship. When someone loves you, they carve out time, not because they have to, but because they want to. Time is love. And when that love weakens, the desire to spend time together fades right along with it. They might tell you they're tired. They might say they have errands. Or they might say nothing at all. But if you keep finding yourself alone, even when they're just a room away, that loneliness may not be accidental. They stop inviting you to do the little things. They stop asking how your day looks. They start saying, "You go ahead," or "I'll stay here." And with each of those quiet choices, the emotional distance widens. You don't need a big fight to feel that separation. Sometimes, all it takes is enough mornings spent apart, enough dinners eaten alone, enough nights when they fall asleep facing the wall. When someone stops loving you, the time they give you isn't just less, it's absent. And that silence, it often says more than words ever could. Sign 4. Emotional withholding. There often comes a quiet point in a relationship when they stop letting you in. Not just into their schedule, but into their inner world. Where once they shared their worries, dreams, and raw thoughts, now you're met with empty words. Surface-level replies like, "It's fine," or "Don't worry about it." But you know better. You feel it. They're holding something back. Gloria, 71, remembers how open her partner Samuel used to be. He'd vent after tense phone calls with his brother. He'd talk through his fears before knee surgery. He even called her his best friend. But that changed. When his cousin passed away, Gloria didn't find out until a week later. When she asked why, he simply said, "I didn't want to burden you." But she knew. That wasn't the reason. The real reason? It had become easier for him to carry things alone than to include her. That kind of emotional closing doesn't happen overnight. But when someone stops loving you, they start shutting doors. They still speak, but they stop sharing. You feel like a roommate, not a partner. Major decisions get made without you. Conversations that once happened over dinner are replaced with silence. And sometimes you don't even realize what's missing until it's already gone. People don't just stop talking. They stop trusting you with their truth. And that absence of trust, that hurts more than silence ever could. They might still help out, still sit beside you in church, still mow the lawn. But the warmth is missing, and when you try to reach for it, they withdraw, not with anger, but avoidance. I'm just tired. You wouldn't understand. But what they're really saying is, I've already begun to disconnect. If this message is speaking to you, comment number 4 to let me know you're still with us. Your engagement supports this channel and helps us keep sharing stories and insights that matter. Sign 5. Physical withdrawal. When emotional closeness begins to slip, the body often follows. You'll notice fewer hugs, less eye contact, no more absent-minded hand-holding or forehead kisses. Even sharing a couch starts to feel like sharing space, not affection. Martin and Alice, married 45 years, were always affectionate. Walks holding hands, shoulder rubs after long days, a kiss before bed. But after retirement, Martin began to pull back. Quietly, he turned away in bed, shrugged off her touch, and gradually, Alice stopped reaching. Not because she didn't love him, but because she no longer knew if her affection was welcome. Physical touch is a language. It says, I'm here. I choose you. I still care. When someone stops loving you, they stop speaking that language. They flinch. They turn away. They no longer seek you out. And when you reach for them, they don't reach back. It's not always about passion. Sometimes it's simply about presence, reassurance, the feeling that you are still wanted. And when that disappears, it leaves you questioning everything, wondering what you did wrong. But often, it's not about anything you did. It's about how they feel, and how they no longer feel with you. If you've noticed the warmth has gone, if hugs feel like formalities and their touch feels cold, it may be time to stop denying what your heart already knows. Because when someone stops loving you, their body tells the truth, even when their words don't. Final thoughts. Now that you've heard these signs, take a moment of silence for yourself. Reflect. Maybe one sign stood out. Maybe all 5 did. The point isn't just to recognize the signs, it's to honor what they mean for you. We often sense the truth in our gut before we see it in actions. But we second guess. We make excuses. We downplay the pain. But emotional distance always leaves a trail, through silence, avoidance, and the quiet ache of not being seen. If you've been wondering, is this real? It likely is. You're not imagining it. You're feeling the shift between being loved and merely tolerated. And that matters. None of this means the love is gone forever, or that things can't heal. But healing starts with honesty, with seeing things clearly, and with choosing to value your own peace just as much as their comfort. Ask yourself the hard questions. Do I feel emotionally safe here? Am I treated with care? Do I still feel chosen? Because you deserve more than someone's routine. You deserve their heart. Thank you for being here. If anything in this video spoke to you, leave a comment below. Share one insight that stood out and how you plan to use it moving forward. Your words mean more than you know, and we read every single one. If this helped, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us keep creating content that matters. Until next time, be kind to your heart. You deserve that.